Workout 2, move 1, seated rows. For this move, you're going to use your resistance bands. You can either use the Velcro loop to loop it around some kind of pole if you have one, good and sturdy, towards the bottom, so that when you're seated on the ground, it's kind of around here. Or if you're seated in a chair, have it up higher. Or you can use this kind of thing, and you can put this in a doorway and then close the door on it and then loop the band here. And at the end, you can use the handles, but I don't. I just hold on to the end and pull. So for the seated row, I like to just sit on the floor, and then I just kind of make sure my shoulders are back and down before I begin, kind of pack my shoulder. And then I start pulling towards myself, and when I really feel the full extension, pause for a second or two, and then control letting it go back. And again. And of course with bands you have a lot of flexibility. If it's too hard, you can scoot closer to the pole or the door, and if it's too easy, you can scoot back. But you want to have pretty good posture, kind of like 90-90, although you can have your feet up for more leverage. Keep those shoulders away from your ears. And try to choose a band that feels like a bit of a challenge, but also keeping in mind progressive overload. So over the 4 weeks, you want to go up in weight each week. So if your highest band is 40 pounds, maybe you want to start with 20 or 25 and then go up to 30 and then 35 and then end the 4th week with 40. And those are seated rows. Move 2, feet elevated glute bridge. So hopefully you remember the glute bridge from workout 1. Now we're just going to elevate our feet. You could do this onto a sofa or a bench or a stair. I'm going to use my bench. And then it's pretty much the same move. You just want to kind of keep your chin just like neutral, facing maybe 45 degrees up instead of tucking it, because that could be a little bit, throw off your form a little bit. So I'm going to lay down, but keep my feet up. And you can do your heels kind of on the edge, or you can do them on top, whatever feels comfortable. Hands down probably, neck down, facing up. And same as before, try to get those glutes to kind of fire up. And we'll do 20. Try to keep that stable surface. This next move is body weight eccentric push-up. So remember, eccentric, concentric is like the kind of what you think of as the lift. Eccentric is the lowering. So for a push-up, the eccentric part is also the lowering. So this part here, 2, 3, 4. So you're gonna do what I just did, count 4 down, control your down, and then you can do knee push-up up, or you can do, again, eccentric, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can just crawl up. Or if you're really fancy, you can try to push up from your toes if you have the strength. Let's see how that goes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, all the way to the ground, and then toes. That may or may not work. To remind you, regressions, if going from your toes is hard, you can go from your knees. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then push up. Or, even easier, you can go from like a table or a bench and elevate your upper body. Might be too close to my wall for my head. 1, 2, 3, 4. And those ones actually are nice. They really target the back of the arms, the triceps. And then if toes even gets easy on the ground, you could always elevate your feet instead. And this is quite challenging. Feet elevated eccentrics. Keep that bum neutral. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then from there, just kind of normal and back up. So you have options to make it easier or to make it harder, but really the focus on this is the eccentric 1, 2, 3, 4 count, and then pushing back. Move 4, dumbbell constant tension goblet squat. So first I'll show you without the dumbbell. Basically, goblet squat, like maybe a normal squat, an air squat, you would do something like this, or maybe this is a little bit more like a goblet squat, if you ever have like held your hands kind of in prayer to squat. Of course, a barbell, you would have something on your back, and it tends to make you a little bit more upright, perhaps to counterbalance. So constant tension is just the constantly moving without a break at the top or the bottom. So maybe sometimes we would pause at the bottom and then come up. That is a pause squat. Maybe sometimes we would squat and then kind of unknowingly pause at the top. That's kind of resetting. Constant tension is just continuing to move under tension, under control. And even with body weight, if you do a few reps of that, you'll feel your body start to warm up very quickly. So that's the constant part. And then we're gonna add the dumbbell, which will really heat things up quickly. You only need one dumbbell for this. So you will pick up your dumbbell and you'll kind of hold it like this under your chin probably. Have your toes pointed. You can do forward. Some people do really far out. I kind of go in the middle, but you have to go with what works for your hip anatomy and feel that out. And then you're going to kind of push your knees out to track over your toes as you lower. And then at the bottom, just reverse and come right back out of it. And at the top, reverse and go right back down. We're gonna try 3 for 12. Track your knees out and then push through your heels as you come up. Track your knees out, push through your heels. 2, 3. Another couple of tips with squats. You don't want your knees to cave in. That's why we're pushing them out so that they track over the toes. You don't want to overextend. That can be bad for the tension in your spine. You don't want to kind of let your bum like go under. That's called butt wink. If you kind of like come down and then at the bottom it curves this way. That's butt wink, and that's equally not great for your back. So kind of just try to keep that tension. If you feel your back starting to do that, that's where you should stop. Don't go further and just push up from there. Even if you're not going as low, that's okay. And what else with squats? It's actually okay if your knees track further than your toes, as long as your heels stay on the ground. If your heels start to come up, then only, once again, go as low as you can with control. It's actually better to keep your heels down and your toes come up a little bit to make sure you're driving through your heels. And the more you drive through your heels, the more you should feel your glutes activate as well to bring you up out of the squat. So that's move 5, one arm dumbbell rows. So you will use one dumbbell, a bench, or I just realized if you don't have a bench, you could use probably a chair or a low table like a coffee table. and or a sofa, side of a sofa. And what you're gonna do is one knee up on the surface and hand under the shoulder. The other leg, you don't want it in too close. You want it kind of out at more of like a 45-degree angle, strong athletic stance. Then grab the dumbbell and square your shoulders and kind of pack your shoulders down and away from your ears. And then you're going to row up. Now from the side, again, this arm under your shoulder, leg out in an athletic stance, kind of pushing back through that glute on that side. And then you're going to row kind of like a little swing up and back. And remember, you're not really using like momentum here. This is really supposed to be coming from back here. So try to isolate mentally to that movement there. 1, 2. Kind of keep your neck neutral and looking maybe 45 degrees out towards the end of your bench or sofa or table. And then you do the same thing on the other side. Again, trying to kind of squeeze back behind your lat on your back. What you want to avoid with the dumbbell row is this leg getting kind of too close to everything and just kind of like leaning over and doing something like this. That's like no range of motion and not really at all targeting the area that you want to target. Okay, the last move of workout 2 is bodyweight side planks. So in workout 1, we just did a traditional plank like so, or maybe on our forearms like so. Now this time we're going to do that on our side. So you can kind of lay on your hip, and you can do this again from your forearm or your hand. I prefer forearm for the side plank, but totally up to you. And then you're gonna pop up, and when you pop up, you have some options. You can do like foot in front of foot, like this. You can do leg down, like a kind of a, actually if you do leg down, you might need to go up on your hand. But that's kind of like a kickstand. If you wanna do slight kickstand, that's easier, but then some challenge, you can lift that leg and then raise this arm. Or a little bit harder, you can pop up, and then if you feel stable, you can put your top foot on top of your bottom foot. And I always like to imagine that I'm like standing against the wall, so it's more stable. You can lift this arm. And if you're into yoga, you could do some playing around with where you put this top leg, but more stable is just to hold it. And then you're gonna hold it for 40 seconds per side. So I'll show you on the other side with the actual hold to see what 40 seconds feels like. Here we go. And you can change as you go too. If you want to start foot in front of foot and then change, maybe add your arm, maybe look up or look down, but try to keep this shoulder from inching up to your ear. Keep that down and stable. This is 20 seconds, so halfway through. One thing that can help too to not cave in this way is to kind of think about pushing this hip up. I like to keep more of a straight body line, but it's okay if you go up a little bit. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and then we do the same thing on the other side.